The rolling hills of Tennessee had always been home to Emily Carter. She grew up among the whispering pines and the scent of honeysuckle in the air, her heart full of melodies that she sang as naturally as breathing. From the time she was a little girl, standing on her grandmother's wooden porch with a makeshift microphone, a wooden spoon, she had dreamed of becoming a country singer. Music was in her soul, and she believed deep down that someday the world would hear her songs. But dreams don't always come easy. At 22, Emily spent her mornings working at Miller's General Store, a small rustic shop nestled at the foot of the hills. She stocked shelves, rang up customers, and sometimes even sang along to the old radio that played behind the counter. The store was a gathering place for locals, farmers, travelers passing through, and townsfolk who had known her since she was a child. Many of them had heard her sing at church or at town events, and always told her she was meant for more. "You're gonna make it big one day, Em," old Mr. Miller would say, leaning against the counter. "Just you wait. Nashville ain't that far, you know." She would smile, thanking him, but in her heart, she knew the road to Nashville was more than just a few hours' drive away. It was a journey of persistence, luck, and finding the right person to believe in her. Every evening after work, she would retreat to the back porch of her small family cabin, strumming her guitar and singing into the cool night air. Her songs were about love, heartache, and the beauty of her Tennessee home. She poured her heart into every note, hoping that someday someone would hear her and give her the chance that she longed for. A Sunday that changed everything. Sunday was always special for Emily. She had grown up in the little white church on the hill, where gospel songs filled the rafters and lifted spirits. Singing in the church choir had been her first stage, and it was the one place that she felt truly free. That morning, the congregation was larger than usual, with a few visitors in the back pews. Emily didn't pay much mind to them as she took her place at the front, preparing to sing the solo for the morning service. The pianist began playing the opening notes of Amazing Grace, and as Emily closed her eyes and took a breath, she felt something stir deep within her. She sang with everything she had, her voice rich and full, filling the small church with a warmth that made the hairs on the back of people's necks stand up. When she finished, the congregation sat in stunned silence for a moment, before applause erupted. But Emily wasn't thinking about that. Her eyes had caught the gaze of a stranger in the back, a man in a navy suit, watching her intently. After the service, as she was speaking with the pastor, the man approached her. "Miss Carter, that was one of the most beautiful voices I've heard in a long time," he said, extending his hand. "My name is James Preston. I work with Magnolia Records in Nashville." Emily's heart nearly stopped. Magnolia Records was one of the biggest labels in country music. She had listened to artists from that label her whole life. "I'd love for you to come to Nashville and audition for us," he continued. "I think you have something special." Emily blinked, almost certain she was dreaming. "Audition? You mean for a real record deal?" He chuckled. "That's exactly what I mean." She barely managed a nod, overwhelmed with emotion. Was this really happening? The road to Nashville. With the encouragement of her family and friends, Emily set out for Nashville the following week. She drove her old pickup truck, her guitar in the passenger seat, her heart pounding the entire way. The city skyline rose before her, a place she had dreamed of for so long, yet had never truly stepped into. At Magnolia Records, she was led into the grand audition room with a panel of executives seated in front of her. James Preston stood to the side, offering her an encouraging nod. She took a deep breath and began to sing one of her original songs, Whispering Pines and Country Roads, a song she had written about home, about the hills that raised her, about the dreams that had carried her here. The room fell silent as she sang. Each lyric carried a piece of her soul, and by the time she finished, she could see that more than one person in the room had been moved. The head executive, a woman with sharp eyes and a kind smile, leaned forward. "Emily, that was breathtaking. We'd like to offer you a contract." Emily's hands trembled. "You mean a real contract with Magnolia Records?" The woman nodded. "A real contract. We believe you have something special, and we want to help you share your voice with the world. Tears welled in Emily's eyes after years of singing into the Tennessee night, working tirelessly to keep her dreams alive. It was finally happening. A dream come true. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. She recorded her first single, worked with some of the best songwriters in the industry, and even stepped into a real recording booth for the first time. But no matter how fast life moved, Emily never forgot where she came from. Her debut album, Homegrown Heart, was a love letter to Tennessee, to the people who had supported her, to the church that had given her a stage before anyone else did. When her first single hit the country charts, she was overwhelmed with emotion. She had made it, but more importantly, she had stayed true to herself. Months later, she returned home to visit, walking into Miller's general store just as the radio played her song. Mr. Miller beamed. "Told you, Em, knew you'd make it." She grinned, hugging him. "I wouldn't be here without y'all." That Sunday, back at her little white church on the hill, Emily sang Amazing Grace once more, but this time the world was listening. Thanks for joining us for Fireside Stories. If you liked what you heard and want even more stories, remember to like and subscribe. And we'll see you the next time that we all gather around the fire.